Hey people, how are you doing today, this morning, this afternoon, actually, wherever you are? My name is Mikeda Valletta, also known as the Body Scientist, and I'm live on my IG page, The Body Scientist. I will save it and repost it to my YouTube page. Make sure you follow me in both places, but in case you don't know who I am, you're not familiar with me, I am a strength and conditioning coach, a sports nutritionist with a background in exercise and sports science, nutritional biochemistry, and also into cannabis medicine, okay? And just studying all the ways that we can take our body to its highest level, all right? So today, there's a few things I want to talk about, okay? So some of you are familiar with my background, but not only do I have a background in nutrition science, but in exercise science, but the graduate program I was in nutrition was the only program in the country that's not funded by the food industry, okay? So all of the nutrition programs in this country are funded by the food industry, the food companies. All of the medical programs in this country are funded by the pharmaceutical industry, okay? The pharmaceutical industry and the medical industry are the same. The pharmaceutical companies and the food companies are the same people. They're the same people, okay? They absolutely control politics, okay? The amount of power that they have is way more than you can even imagine, all right? Now, when I first started off in college, I was a biotechnology major, and for 2 years before I got to exercise and sports science. So originally, what I wanted to do was become a scientist and research cures for genetic diseases, okay? So I was very much interested in infectious disease, especially after taking microbiology and stuff. But I was very much into infectious disease and also genetic diseases, okay? And so genetics is something that I also know a lot about. And, getting into nutrition, okay, then you also understand that nutrition affects your genes. People think that like, oh, diabetes runs in my family, or this thing runs in my family, or that because it's in your genetics, it's in the genes or whatever, that it's written that that's definitely going to be your outcome. But that's not true. We have genotypes and we have phenotypes, okay? Genotype is what your genes code for, like what the code is, the potential. Phenotype is what actually gets expressed, okay? So in somebody's genes, it could say you could have the potential to be 6'5", but if you weren't nourished properly when you were a kid, you might only be 5'6", okay? So you didn't reach your full genetic potential, okay? Reaching your full genetic potential has to do with your environment, all right? So it's nature and nurture. I did a YouTube video before about that called Nature and Nurture. So, there are studies that have been done on identical twins, where you take identical twins who live two different lifestyles, okay? One lives a very healthy one lives a very non-healthy one, and you see their health outcomes and how long they live. So the studies like that have been done. But it's just true that there are things that can mutate your genes, there are things that can turn your genes on, and there are things that can turn your genes off, okay? So, when you're talking about things that can mutate your genes, those could be carcinogens, mutagens, artificial chemicals in the environment that can mutate your genes. And now it codes for cancer. Cancer is a genetic disease. It doesn't mean when people hear genetic disease, they think it means that something you inherited. No, you can have genetic disease means the disease is coded for in the genes, right? Which is what cancer is. But that can happen because that person was exposed to something that mutated their genes, right? Then you have certain genes that protect and do other things that get turned on, get turned off, all right? Our microbiome plays a critical role. I've been studying microbiome since the 90s, okay? Since I was in high school in the late 90s, okay? I've been aware of the importance of protecting your microbiome, okay? And then as an adult, in the work that I've done with people over the years, I've consistently talked about the importance of your microbiome, okay? Period, point blank. If you're addicted to sugar, if you, like a lot of people, the amount of sugar they can eat is ridiculous. I don't even, it makes my stomach turn. That's because of their microbiome. People who are obese, a lot of times they have metabolic disorder. They have distorted microbiomes. People who have What else was I gonna say? I just lost my train of thought trying to read something. Sorry. People that have allergies, okay, digestive issues, they have a distorted microbiome. Everybody should be eating fermented foods every single day, okay? Most people are not. I'm not going to get super into that in this video because that's not what this video is about. But that is another thing that plays a role. And I have videos where I talk about that. So what I want to get to, okay, because as I said, like my approach to the body has always been about getting to the source of the problem. Like if somebody has a certain health issue or challenge, I don't just think, like medicine is trained to think, okay, what are we going to give this person to stop the symptoms? What are we going to get? I think, why is this happening in the first place? Why do you have digestive issues in the first place? Why do you have allergies in the first place? Why do you have hypertension? Whatever it is, you know what I'm saying? Or you're not producing a certain enzyme. And, with cannabis, there's been a huge, there's been a discovery in, you could say physiology, biology, and that's the endocannabinoid system. Some of you may not be familiar with that, but we have digestive system, we have a circulatory system, we have a respiratory system, we have an immune system, we have a lymphatic system. We also have, an endocannabinoid system. And it's basically, a series of receptors, not just, people can say CB1 and CB2, but it's actually more complex than that, but I won't get into that here in this conversation. But there are receptors that are found almost in every organ in our body, okay? There are cannabinoid receptors, and our body produces endocannabinoids, okay? So our body produces cannabinoids that bind to these receptors. Then you have the cannabinoids that are in cannabis, which are phytocannabinoids, which also can bind to those receptors or modulate them, okay? And this system, this endocannabinoid system, modulates all the other systems, okay? So does vitamin D. Actually, there's a huge correlation to me between vitamin D and endocannabinoids, okay? And in terms of how important they are, what they do, really important. But, there are certain chronic conditions that people have that now researchers are saying, they have an endocannabinoid deficiency. So my question is, why do you have an endocannabinoid deficiency? And I can tell you, anytime somebody has any kind of deficiency, their nutrition is lacking, okay? Because it's like, if you think, our body makes endocannabinoids, right? So our body makes them on demand. Our neurons make them on demand. And they bind to these receptors that modulate everything. So why is it that some people have a deficiency in that system? Okay? So I'm not going to get super into that in this video either, because I have a video called Nutrition and Cannabis, right? But I just wanted to say that it's a very important system. And in my studies, like this whole time, I've been interested in the science of cannabis medicine, right? I've been interested in how does it work, because I've used it for a lot of things, and I have clients that have used it for a lot of things. Like, for example, a new thing, because I talk in other videos about things that I've used it for. When I got into a car accident, and it helped with my back. It helped when I ripped my navel ring out my navel when I was in the pole and I was in so much pain. Okay, the excruciating pain. Didn't get any stitches. Didn't use the antibacterial ointments they use. So I use it to prevent infection and to get rid of the pain. I use it for headaches. A wide variety of things, and I have many videos where I talk about it. But I've never had allergies in my life, and like over the past maybe a few weeks, I was like, my nose was irritated. It was like itching and swollen, and I would blow my nose a little bit, but still my nose is just irritated. And I'm already sensitive to like artificial chemicals. I cannot be in a closed up space with like artificial air freshener and like cologne, like just chemicals. Okay, I need fresh air. Okay, it's one of the reasons why I don't like hotels. But so all of a sudden my nose, and I'm like, I feel like I'm getting allergies, and I'm looking it up, like what would I have allergies for at this time? And I saw ragweed, right, which grows in the Midwest and the East Coast, the two places that I'm at, Chicago and New York, right, or DC. I'm just on the East Coast in the Midwest. So ragweed, that can cause fall allergies. And I said to myself, it was driving me crazy. I've never had allergies before, and I'm like, this is miserable. I need my body to function for what I need to do. I need to be able to breathe. Like I can't be. So I said, you know what? Cannabis medicine works for everything. Let me just try this. The oil that I have. I took some of coconut, cannabis infused coconut oil. Put some of it on my finger. I had to use this finger because that's the only one with no nails. and put it on the top of my nose, right? And that shit calmed everything down, because it was like I was sneezing a lot. That's the other thing. And when you sneeze, it's like sneezing and coughing is your body trying to get something out of your system. And I never sneeze. I blow my nose like once a year. Like I don't have any of those issues, right? So like when I would blow my nose or touch my nose, if I touched my nose, it would start the sneezing attack. So I'm like, something is irritating me and my immune system is overreacting. That's what allergic reactions are. When people have immune issues, like it's an overactive immune system. And I know that cannabis, the cannabinoids, and a lot of the properties in cannabis helps to modulate, along with vitamin D, the immune system response, right? So I just put that on there topically. It calmed it down, completely calmed it down. I maybe used it a couple times over a few days and then didn't have to use it anymore. I don't have the problem anymore, right? But I remember September 3rd, it was the day after I went to the Nas and Wu-Tang concert in Chicago. I woke up the next morning. I could not freaking breathe. I had to breathe out of my mouth in my sleep, which I don't breathe out of my mouth. It's not an efficient way to breathe, okay? And it's like a miserable thing to be sleeping and think you have to breathe out of your mouth because you can't breathe through your nose, okay? That was the day where I was done. I put that oil, and it helped so much, right? And so I have numerous stories like that. But one of the classes I'm taking now, okay, is about, I'm saying all this to say, let me get to the point, okay, of this video. Learning about the history, okay, the history of cannabis medicine in this country and in the world, okay. Like, of course, I grew up around it, not in the medicinal kind of way of what I'm talking about now with using oils and tinctures in a variety of different ways for different issues, but just seeing, highly intelligent elders around me who smoked weed, and I never looked at it, and it was normalized to me. So it wasn't like, but again, I wasn't doing it when I was a teenager or anything like that. I was grown before I ever smoked anything. But I just didn't have this to me, it was like, okay, you have adults that drink. When you're a kid, you're around adults who are drinking rum or drinking beer or drinking wine. That's not for you because you're a kid, right? But I didn't see the drinking like that. I saw people sitting around having intelligent conversations, particularly my dad and his friends, and and they had intact brains and they were cool and it was just normalized, right? So I never had this idea that it makes people stupid or anything like that. Then when I was in college and I was an athlete, it helped to calm me down, okay? Helped to calm me down. And also as a dancer, I'm an artist, I have my artistic side as a dancer, drumming. That helped me to connect. It helped me to just like really get into my zone. Whereas I remember when I was in college, I remember making an observation that alcohol made me feel less connected with my body. I can't necessarily say that now. It depends on how much, I drink, but if you drink too much, okay, like it just makes you feel less connected with your body. And so I'm taking a class right now that's about the history and policy, okay, of cannabis prohibition in this country. And it's crazy because you know what? It brings me right back around to nutrition, okay? So like I said, the graduate program that I was in for applied physiology and nutrition was the only nutrition program in the country that did not take money from the food industry, okay? So that means all the dietitian people who went to school at the food companies, okay? And so I'm not somebody, I believe in academia, okay? I believe in book knowledge and studying, but I also believe in critical thinking, doing your own research, okay? Doing your own research and constantly researching, especially if you're a practitioner and you're advising people. Because I never wanted anybody to come to me for help because they're trying to improve their health in their body and I give them the wrong advice and mess them up. So I take what I do very seriously and I care about myself. I want to age as gracefully as possible and not have all these problems. So prevention is the best medicine. So for those two reasons, I've been very serious about that, right? So looking back, all right, from 1840 to about 1920, okay, cannabis was in the Pharmacopeia in the U.S., okay, which means the book of medicines that doctors used. Cannabis was heavily prescribed, over 100 conditions, regularly, okay? It was one of the most common prescribed medications. And there were, every single year when the U.S. published a book, okay, about, with the different medicines that are being used for pharmacists, there was a whole chapter on cannabis, okay? And not just in the U.S., but all around the world, okay? All around the world. In Africa, South Africa, huge, which is one of the reasons why I want to go to South Africa now, because cannabis medicine is huge there in their tradition for generations. And they have recently also done a lot to change laws and make it more accessible, right? But also in Asia, in India, okay? In India, actually, they have a drink called bhang, which is, milk and cannabis, or lassis, which people who know me know I love milk, okay? I actually have my shake down here on the floor. Raw milk, okay, which is another thing that's so demonized and hard to get in this country, and it's becoming more accessible, but you can't just go to the supermarket and buy raw milk, okay? I get my raw milk everywhere I go. Also something that's super medicinal that people have consumed all over the world for generations that has been demonized. Okay, the food companies and the pharmaceutical companies have put out so much propaganda to convince people that the things that we've been using and doing for generations is no good. And that we have to use the shit they created, right? So don't consume raw milk from a cow. You need to consume the lactate, homogenized, pasteurized milk from the store, or the milk from the store that has the fake vitamin D in it, when you could get natural vitamin D if you consume raw milk. They try to tell you raw milk will cause infections and make you sick and make you afraid of that, when it's coming from healthy cows on a farm, has all its enzymes intact, has all the good bacteria that you need for your microbiome, for your gut health, for your digestion, to assimilate nutrients, has the best fats you need for your brain and your immune system, okay? Calcium, and glutathione, which is super important, okay? Vitamin C. Raw milk from healthy cows is a superfood. Not the stuff in the supermarket that's homogenized and pasteurized is coming from sick cows. Not the almond milk, not the rice milk, not the whatever, what do people eat? Ramen, almond milk, macadamia milk, I don't care. All those nut milks, rice milk, nutritional value is insignificant. And when you're buying it in a carton, it has a whole bunch of toxic additives and fake vitamins, okay? So they convince you that you need to... Tell me where in the world, what traditions in the world do you see people drinking almond milk or rice milk? Where? But there are plenty of places in the world people have been drinking raw cow's milk, goat's milk, sheep's milk, camel's milk forever. No, flaxseed milk is garbage. No. All that stuff is some made-up food industry stuff, okay? And it does not compare. The only thing that might be somewhat decent is coconut milk, but coconut milk has fats in it that's good for your immune system and for burning fat. But coconut milk does not have vitamin A and D. Coconut milk does not have calcium. Coconut milk doesn't have any protein in it, okay? So even then, raw milk is better. But you can make a shake and put some raw milk in coconut milk, because coconut milk has lauric acid. Lauric acid is super antiviral, antimicrobial, okay? And coconut, lauric acid in coconut, the fats in coconut help you burn fat. So that's what that's good for, right? But it's not as nutrient dense as animal milk, right? So anyhow, the reason why, that, the politics in this country around cannabis has been very crazy, because this kind of comes back full circle to what I said in the beginning, okay? In the beginning, when I was a biotechnology major, I went to University of Delaware. The University of Delaware, the DuPonts run the University of Delaware, okay? I was a science major. So when I was at the University of Delaware, they were the number 2 most wired school in America. So their technology was on point. And when you're in science, that's important. And I remember the DuPonts, they own the University of Delaware, right? They gave so much money to... They give so much money to the sciences on their campus. So what I had access to as an undergrad at the University of Delaware, I really didn't see campuses that even compared, And as an exercise and sports science major, we had figure skating science was a major under the exercise and sports science umbrella. And we had an ice skating rink where Olympic skaters trained, and all kinds of technology, right? And so I kind of heard that the DuPonts were like a creepy family, probably a little evil like the Rockefellers and stuff. But this cannabis, thing, they had a huge, Rockefeller, Mellon, Andrew Carnegie, and I feel like somebody else played a huge role, because cannabis, which they also called hemp, was used not just for medicine, but it was used to make paper, right? which is way better than cutting down trees. Deforestation is a problem, okay? I don't hear any of the vegans talking about the problem of deforestation, okay? Because let's really be real. Plants are living too. And we need trees. We all need to breathe, right? We need the air to be right. And it takes thousands of years for some of these trees to grow. So they're cutting down all these trees, messing with the ecosystem of the planet, just like we have our own micro ecosystem. I talk about the microbiome, okay? We have a micro ecosystem. We have an ecosystem too, in our gut, on our skin, okay? And that affects how shit functions and being in balance. So we're cutting down these trees to make paper, all right? Deforestation. It can also be used to make furniture. You know, hemp can be used to make furniture. Also can be used to make gas for cars. And the gas that it makes for cars is non-toxic to the environment. It's not dirty. The engine's not dirty. So we don't have to be using this gas that we're using that is super toxic to the planet. Now we have all these planetary problems because of using that. That didn't have to happen. There's a fine balance. There's a balance between living in harmony with nature and enjoying technology, okay? Most people don't want to go back to days where there was no cars and no technology, right? But there's a way to do it in a cleaner way. But because DuPont, okay, I think, what was this, in the 1920s or 30s? Maybe the 1930s? DuPont had just invested. It was right around the time cars came out, okay? Because Henry Ford was planning on using hemp gas, okay, to fuel the cars. And, and so DuPont had just invested in a bunch of petrochemicals and making a whole bunch of artificial stuff, like nylon, things made from nylon, the stockings, and there's a whole bunch of shit. I can't even tell you, like a whole bunch of things that we commonly use, plastic and cellophane wrap and all the stuff that could be made from hemp. It was better for the environment. He decided to suppress it and was like, we need to make this illegal because it was messing with his money. Then it was, I think, either Mellon or Andrew Carnegie, one of them owned, there was another guy named Hearst who owned like a bunch of magazines, a lot of the magazines in this country. He had just invested in a timber forest, okay? And that paper was going to be used to publish, his publications, his magazines, his newspapers around the country. So he wanted hemp to be outlawed, okay? Because hemp paper would have definitely, it would have taken the place. It was competition for his tree paper, right? Now you have one of them, I can't remember, and I should know this off the top of my head. One of them, it may have been Carnegie. Okay, now I may have them mixed up, but I think it may have been Carnegie who was invested. It was either Carnegie or Mellon. One of them was invested in, had a own Gulf Gas, right? So they own Gulf Gas. So they all were invested in suppressing gas, hemp paper. Then, okay, they also, all of them, Rockefeller was the banker. He was in there involved in it too, okay? Rockefeller, DuPont, Carnegie, Mellon, all of them, they also were invested in the pharmaceutical industry, okay? And they absolutely wanted all natural plants to be stamped out and to be illegal and not be used so people can buy their pharmaceuticals, okay? The pharmaceutical company is evil, but so are the food companies, I'm trying to tell you. I've known this about the food companies since my graduate program brought it to my attention, which is why I'm super picky about what I eat, but I eat good food though. You know what I'm saying? I'm not walking around eating salad and granola bars and meal replacement shakes. I eat good food, but I know what I'm eating. And when I work with people, that's what I teach them. I don't just tell people, oh, eat chicken breast and eat this. No, you have to understand how to evaluate your food and how to understand what you're eating, because the food industry is super tricky. But let me tell you, it's a myth that we are living longer now than we ever had before. That's a myth, okay? If you look back at, anthropological records, historical records, even not that far ago, look at the work of Weston A. Price. I highly suggest to get the book Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. Nutrition and Physical Degeneration by Weston A. Price. And you will see how we were perfection not too long ago and we were eating our traditional foods, okay? Now people are sicker than they've ever been. Kids now have never even had liver before. If you're of a certain age, you either like liver or you were given liver as a child. You were given cod liver oil. These kids now are so sickly, so frail, can't mentally handle anything. A lot of that has to do with the weak-ass nutrition that they're being given, all right? But now this book, I just want to say right here, right? The Emperor Wears No Clothes, okay? This book is a book that really exposes this conspiracy with cannabis because, like I said, there are so many medications that are killing people, okay? That's the third leading cause of death in this country is pharmaceuticals, all right? Also, I remember being in Costa Rica, like, teaching, this is like over 10 years ago. This is like 12 years ago or something. For a few years, I was going back and forth teaching women there, right? And I remember a woman told me she lost her ovary, okay, because she was taking some kind of birth control or something that was illegal, outlawed in the U.S. This medication was outlawed in the U.S., but yet it was over-the-counter medication in Costa Rica. And I remember thinking how crazy and wrong that was, because first of all, if a medication is outlawed here, it's bad. Because there's medications that kill people every goddamn day in this country that's still legal and heavily prescribed. So if you have a medication that is illegal in the U.S., and then they're dumping it, okay? They're dumping it into, I don't like the term third world countries, okay? But you could say third world countries, especially Latin American countries, dumping these medications that are known to cause deformities and cancer and all kinds of health problems. People have got to people can do what they want, okay? It depends on where your priorities are with your health. But if your health is truly, if you can't, when people tell me they're truly into their health, but they're taking all these medications, no, you're not. Okay? No, you're not. If you're truly into your health, don't trust the pharmaceutical companies. Like, if you have to have surgery, you're going to have to get anesthesia, whatever. But everything from that point on, don't take the antibiotic. Don't take the painkillers that they prescribe you. Okay? You can actually do it all with cannabis. Okay? Now, this is another book. Okay? Marijuana, A Short History. Now, there's so many books written on the history of marijuana that are taking different perspectives. This one is dealing with the politics, particularly in this country and internationally. Because at one point, it was legal everywhere in the world. Everybody in the world was growing hemp, cannabis, same thing, and they were using it for a variety of things. Once the U.S. started with making it illegal, they pushed it on other countries. But let me get to the thing, right? So the DuPonts and the Carnegie and Mellon and Rockefeller wanted to make cannabis illegal because it was messing with their money and pharmaceuticals, in paper, in gas, and other fake shit they were making, right? So what happened was they got Harry Anslinger, okay? Harry Anslinger, and I can't remember all these. Harry Anslinger was the nephew-in-law of one of them, okay? One of those evil dudes, right? Harry Anslinger came in, became the head of the Bureau of Narcotics, and he fiercely started going after cannabis, but he changed the name to marijuana, okay? Which to associate with Mexicans, okay? And then it was because there was, Mexican workers who were coming here and they were smoking it. And the U.S. already was using it, right? But the U.S. now, it's conflicting things when you read the history, because some places in the history it says that they weren't really smoking it like that in the U.S. They were using it in other ways, in tinctures and oils. But I don't know. There's reasons why I don't think that's completely true, but it probably just wasn't out in the open as much, right? And Mexican workers, and so they started trying to associate it with Mexicans, right? And xenophobia, all right? Then they started associating it with black jazz culture in New Orleans and then in Harlem. And there was a lot of the fact that white women were going to run away with black men and have sex with them. Okay, this was said by Harry Anslinger. Harry Anslinger said that jazz music was evil. Okay, and there were these propaganda films that were put out. And then the dude Hearst, who owned all the publications, he started putting all these crazy images out. Okay, propaganda, the same thing that the food industry did, to convince people to stop eating butter but consume margarine, and to stop eating lard and consume Crisco, and to stop giving birth to their babies with midwives and go to the hospital and be strapped up to machines. And my mom told me in the 1950s, okay, women in this country were convinced that formula was better than breast milk. Okay, my mom said in 1950s, women in this country were not breastfeeding like that. The doctors had convinced them that this formula was better. People have got to stop. We've been on this planet for hundreds of thousands of years. How can it be that some shit that a major company made is better than what your body's making, that women have been doing since the beginning of time? Please tell me that. The fact that people believe this stuff, but it's propaganda. It was the propaganda ads, the ad campaigns, putting out these images of people that smoke weed as being crazy and violent, and really associating it with blacks and Mexicans. Okay, now there was already a white fear of those things. And when they started to try and make stuff illegal, there was the Marijuana Tax Act in 1937. Now, I should know this off the top of my head because I've just written so many papers on this shit, right? But that put a tax on it, which made it really impossible, for people to kind of have access to it and stuff like that. The American Medical Association at that time was against that. The American Medical Association, propaganda movies like Reefer Madness, yes. The American Medical Association was against that then, okay? The American Medical Association, they knew that cannabis was used for so many things. Now, the American public didn't know that marijuana was the same thing as cannabis and hemp, because the Americans knew it as cannabis and hemp. When they started calling it marijuana, most people, and starting all this propaganda shit, most Americans thought it was something else. Which is what made it easier for them to make it illegal, okay? Change the name. Have all these propaganda films on the papers, okay, and then you're able to pass this tax act, okay. There was also something called loco weed that it was being confused with, which is something else, right? So now now from that point on, okay, there was this demonization, and there's different things that happen in different administrations. Well, after the Marijuana Tax Act, the mayor of LaGuardia, the mayor of New York. Sometimes I have so much in my brain, it's hard for me I'm like trying to say it properly. The mayor of New York, Mayor LaGuardia, who our airport is named out of, that I fly in and out of every time I come to New York. In 1944, he published a report where he had gotten some scientists together that for a few years studied cannabis and its effects and, all these negative things that Harry Anslinger was saying, that it makes you addicted and it makes you lazy and it makes you crazy and violent, and it's the gateway drug to all these other drugs, and it has no medicinal value, all of this stuff, right? And LaGuardia scientists found none of that to be true. None of it's true. It's not addictive. It doesn't lead to criminality. It's not a gateway drug to other things. It does have lots of medicinal value for a number of conditions, and it was listed. Harry Anslinger ignored that. He told everybody to ignore it. He petitioned the American Medical Association. People get paid off, right? Then with Nixon, you had, of course, in the 60s, you had the hippies and you had the Black Panthers and, trying to associate it with all of them and you being a counterculture. And people who smoke weed are rebels and stuff like that. Then Nixon came in and, in 1970 passed the Controlled Substance Act, right? The Controlled Substance Act put different drugs in classes based on how addictive they were, how medicinal they were, all this other stuff, right? And but they put them in schedules, not classes, sorry. And cannabis got put into Schedule 1, okay? Schedule 1 are drugs that have no medicinal value at all, okay? They are highly addictive. And what was the other thing? It's something else. Highly addictive, no medicinal value. It's something else, I forget, right? But yet you have things like cocaine and hard drugs that aren't in Schedule 1, okay? And when something, actually, hold on a minute. Let me look something up. Hold on a second. All right. Let me look it up. Oh, actually, it's probably in this book. Hold on. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, yeah. Schedule 1 substance has a high potential for abuse, has no currently accepted medical use and treatment in the United States. And number 3, there's a lack of accepted safety for use of the drug or other substance under medical supervision. Okay? So there's a lack of accepted safety for use of the drug or other substance under medical supervision. That's crazy, because what did I tell you? It was heavily prescribed in this country from 1840 to 1920. It was in the U.S. Pharmacopeia, okay? In 1860, there was a conference on cannabis medicine, a conference that doctors had where they were talking all day about the thing. And slavery wasn't even over yet. So to me, when I read about 1840, 1860, all I'm thinking is there were slaves in this country then, right? But there was a conference in 1860 where doctors were talking about all of the success they've had treating a bunch of health conditions with cannabis. All right? The American Medical Association was against Anslinger trying to pass the Marijuana Tax Act in 1937. They were against it. So how are we going to say, and there's not one reported death from anybody using cannabis medicinally. Not one. But we know there's tons of medications that kill people every day. And I just told you pharmaceuticals are the third leading cause of death in this country. So how can you say that? Right? Now, okay, let me look this up so I can tell you exactly. Because I know what else is on Schedule 1 is peyote, which, to native people in this country is medicine, absolutely. And psilocybin mushrooms, which is not something, I know that they have medicinal value, but that's not something I've really looked into so much. I'm probably about to start studying it just because it's coming up a lot, and I see that there's medicinal properties. That's not something that I'm experienced with. Hold on a minute. Let me see something. Okay. Let me tell you exactly what it is. Because I know that there are drugs that are way more dangerous than cannabis that are... Okay, so the DEA did this scheduling. And... Okay, let me see. Schedule 1, I'm not good with the technology, so I'm not bringing up something in the background. But Schedule 1 drugs are substances or chemicals are defined as drugs with no currently accepted medical use and a high potential for abuse. Some examples of Schedule 1 drugs are heroin, lysergic acid, I don't know what that is, LSD, marijuana, ecstasy, methaqualone, and peyote, right? In Schedule 1. But then Schedule 2 drugs is substances or chemicals that are defined as drugs with a high potential for abuse, with use potentially leading to severe psychological or physical dependence. These drugs are also considered dangerous. Some examples of Schedule 2 are hydrocodone, which is Vicodin, cocaine, methamphetamine, methadone, OxyContin, fentanyl, Ritalin. Okay. Schedule 3 drugs are substances or chemicals that are defined as drugs with a moderate to low potential for physical and psychological dependence. Schedule 3 drugs, abuse potential is less than Schedule 1 and Schedule 2 drugs, but more than Schedule 4. Some of these drugs are Tylenol with codeine, anabolic steroids, testosterone, and ketamine. Okay. Now, Schedule 4 and substances or chemicals defined as drugs with a low potential for abuse and low risk of dependence. Some examples of Schedule 4 are Xanax, Soma, Darvon, Darvocet, Valium, Ambien, Tramadol. Okay. And then you have Schedule 5, which is substances or chemicals are defined as drugs with lower potential for abuse than Schedule 4, and consist of preparations containing limited quantities of certain narcotics. And blah, 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 blah. So anyhow, Robitussin, codeine. All I'm going to say is Tylenol, Advil's addictive. I was addicted to Advil in the 7th grade. That's why I do not take headache medications. I do not take Tylenol, Advil, none of that stuff. Okay? Cannabis is way better than using those things. Okay? And I could get more into depth with that. I will on my membership page because, as a sports, science person, I told you, I've always been aware of COX-2 inhibitors. COX-2 inhibitors are NSAIDs, okay, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, okay, which are heavily prescribed to athletes and regular people. But COX-2 is important COX-2 is an important enzyme in order for your body to heal. So when you take a COX-2 inhibitor, it stops the pain but prevents your body from healing. It's actually bad, So when you're using cannabis for pain or inflammation, it helps the body to maintain homeostasis, but it also helps the body heal, okay? And I have more videos where I talk about that more in depth. But there's no way, that some of these drugs, because the problem with Schedule 1, when something's a Schedule 1 drug, now I can't remember if this law has changed or not. It might have changed. I can't remember. I don't know if it's a state thing. But it was against the law for doctors. You might be addicted to Advil and it hurts your stomach when you take, Advil can cause ulcers, okay? So if it hurts your stomach, stop taking that shit immediately because it causes ulcers, okay? When I was in college and I was a collegiate athlete, I remember I had shin splints really bad, and I had surgery in my foot, right? And so there was one day that I just was keeled over in pain. I was in so much pain. And I go to the sports medicine doctor. He looks at my file. He's like, oh, you've been on NSAIDs for months. Like, that causes ulcers. And he thought that was the reason why. And I'm like, oh, what? I remember thinking I didn't know that, which is one of the problems of sports medicine, medicine period. But, yeah, no. I was addicted to Advil in the 7th grade. I have avoided taking it ever since then. But I can tell you that cannabis can help with your headache. Now, and that's one of the things that's been documented for use. One of the things that's from hundreds of years ago was headaches. I use it for my headaches. But I don't smoke it when I have a headache. Like, how I use cannabis medicinally depends on what I'm using it for. Like, when I use it for the allergy thing I told you, I didn't smoke it. I mean, I already smoked it. That wasn't helping it. I took the oil and put it on my nose, right? When I want to use it for my headache. When I have a bad headache, I don't even want to smoke weed. When I have a bad headache, I put the oil in my tea. Either CBD or THC oil in my tea. Coconut infused. I make a tea that is fatty with my raw milk. Maybe I'll make some chamomile lavender tea. Put some milk and cream in it because those fats help even more with the endocannabinoids. Okay, I have videos where I talk about that. The fact that our endocannabinoids are made from animal fat. Another video called Nutrition and Cannabis. Check those videos out. But I just feel like it enhances it. But a lot of times with my clients, I'll tell them to put it in regular water-based tea, whatever. But it's just that cannabis loves fat anyway. And I love fat. Fat makes everything better, right? Especially animal fats, okay? So, and coconut oil is good, especially animal fats, saturated fats. But, I put it in there, and that's what helps my headaches, okay? That's what, when I use it for my back pain when I got into an accident, that's how I ingested it, right? Other times, you might use it topically, depending on what you're using it for, I have a friend right now who's using it for, like, digestive issues. He has, like, Crohn's disease or irritable bowel syndrome really bad. And, hold on, I have to sneeze. Excuse me. Sorry. I never sneeze. He never smoked weed, okay? My friend is not a weed smoker, never consumed cannabis at all. He started consuming the tincture and the oil, and it's been helping him. And he's not like, oh my God, I'm high. Oh my God, you know what I'm saying? No. So using it medicinally, and if that's something that anybody who's listening needs help with, thank you. You have certain health conditions and you are interested in using cannabis as medicine to either prevent medications or kind of wean off or whatever, you can always contact me and reach out for evaluations and coaching on that. You can use it for pain for sure. I have videos where I talk about that. So in terms of like really getting into the politics of why cannabis has been outlawed, and the days are, it's a problem because when something's a Schedule 1 drug, or what I was saying was something's a Schedule 1 drug, it was against the law for doctors to write Schedule 1 drugs on their prescription pad. They'd be breaking federal law. And then scientists can't study it when it's a Schedule 1 drug. It makes it incredibly difficult for scientists to study. And I've made videos in the past talking about the corruption in science, okay? And the politics in science. I have videos on my YouTube page, on my Instagram page, where I talk about that. There are books that I post that talk about that, okay? There's a lot of politics in science, which is what made me not want to be a scientist anymore. And then I found myself right back in, and also I've been a practitioner who worked for myself all these years because I didn't want to be like, well, I have to tell people bullshit because I don't want to lose my license. And a lot of doctors and dietitians are in that place. If they go against the AMA, they'll lose their license. If they go against the ADA, which is American Dietetic Association, they'll lose their license. I didn't want to, I want to be able to tell people the truth. I don't want to be like, oh, I spent all this money on this degree and I have to tell people bullshit and harm them because I don't want to lose my life. Nope. But to find myself back into a graduate program in science and for it to be in cannabis, and it's like, all this stuff that cannabis is waking people up to, the corruption, like how bad it gets with the pharmaceutical companies. Nutrition education, the particular program I was in, has also woke me up to that. I remember we had to take a class on global food systems, okay? I think it was called Nutrition and Global Ecology or something like that. And that's when I learned about the global food. It's like a lot of people talk about just the U.S. No. It was a global food issue, okay? There's a global community, there's a global commercial food issue. There's a global issue when it comes to people being able to get local foods from local farmers. I mean, it's way more complex than you think. And the food industry is way more sinister than you think, okay? And they're the same people. And this is why, like, you know, for so long, like, I don't associate with most people who say that they're trainers or nutritionists, because we don't be on the same shit, because a lot of them have been indoctrinated, okay? I just was talking to a dude who's a pharmacist, okay? Yeah, a doctorate degree. And he was asking me why Gatorade was bad. I'm like, you don't know why Gatorade is bad? You have a doctorate in pharmacy. That means you took a lot of biochemistry. I took biochemistry too. Medical doctors take biochemistry too. But when I have friends who are doctors, and I'll tell them to get coconut oil, go buy some coconut oil from the store. I've never known one doctor that was ever able to go to the store and come back with coconut oil. They always come back with some chemical shit. Like, it's like, you know, what is that company? I forget this company that makes like cocoa butter lotion, but they make like a cocoa butter lotion oil that has canola oil in it, all this crap. Like, they'll buy some shit like that, or they literally would have 3-4 different things and they don't know which one is coconut oil. And I'm like, how the fuck do you not understand like basic coconut oil? Everything you get is chemicaled out. You know what I'm saying? We all take biochemistry. But the thing is that there's a lot of indoctrination. And nutrition people learn biochemistry from a different perspective. But then also, you know, what you learn in your biochemistry class and then what you learn when they teach you what to tell people, two different things. Okay, I talk about this in my videos about fats. Like, saturated fats is so important. And you learn that in biochemistry. But then when you take the classes where they tell you what to tell people, they tell you something else. Oh, they put a list. Saturated fats are bad. Now includes coconut oil and palm oil. It's bad because it's saturated. That's not true. And if you actually think about the science, the actual chemistry of it, you know it's not true. Then when you look around the world and look at the healthiest, longest living people and you see what they're eating, it's not canola oil, okay? Because you could look at epidemiology. You look at the, you know, biology, biochemistry. You look at epidemiology. You look at, you know, go back in history, anthropology, all those things, right? People don't take the time to look at labels because they don't know how to read them. No, people don't know how to read them. No. And that's why I do what I do, right? I always say I educate people. Even when people work with me as a client, people ask me, do you do meal plans? No, I don't just write meal plans. I educate you. So you can understand what you need, why you need it, and how to find it, and how to evaluate your food. So you can understand what the hell you're eating, because most people don't. Most people do not. And I understand that. So that's why I don't even tell people, oh, read the labels, because they don't know what they're reading. People be like, focus on the sugar and the salt. That's like the least of your problems, okay? Like, the least. All right? Or the calories, which is pointless. Don't even look at calories. They're not even what you're supposed to be looking at. You know what I'm saying? And I'm going to do more videos on that on my Patreon page for the Body Scientists. It's either Patreon or OnlyFans, because I created a Patreon page, but then it was seeming like too complicated for me. So it's going to be in one of those, and I keep saying every day I'm going to post it, and I haven't yet, but I promise I will. You haven't had sugar cravings all week since watching my videos. That's good. When you eat enough good fat, you don't crave sugar. You really don't. Another good book about cannabis medicine. This book is Cannabis is Medicine, right? This is written by a medical doctor named Bonnie Goldstein. All right. I also have it posted on my YouTube page. My Instagram page. Sorry. So if you're like interested in understanding more about how to use it medicinally for a variety of issues, this is a good book. There are other ones, but this is definitely a good one. And so, yeah, like, there are people now who are on this. This cannabis should not be a Schedule 1 drug. It's all based on propaganda, okay? And when it's a Schedule 1 drug, it stops the research, okay? there's a lot of bureaucracy with even trying to conduct cannabis research. You would be shocked at how much it gets suppressed. But yet, I hope you guys can still hear me. Or you haven't even had that much. That's what's up. The FDA has approved something called Medicinal. There's a few synthetic THC drugs that the FDA has approved. It's based off of THC, but it's synthetic and it doesn't work as good as cannabis. Okay, just like with any plant, most medications come from plants. Okay, but they want to isolate the active compound so they can get a patent on it and make money off of it. All right, they can't make money off of natural herbs. All right. And the real thing is always going to be better because it's in the plant with all the other compounds that control for. It's not just the THC. It's not just the CBD. It's other things in the plant that also play a role in how in the medicine. Okay, same thing with food. That's the reason why I always say I do not recommend people take vitamin pills. You know, if you find out you're vitamin D deficient, I'm gonna go buy vitamin D. No, don't do that. You want stuff in a whole food form because vitamin D. Every unit of vitamin D you consume, you need a unit of vitamin A. You need the right kinds of fats, okay? This is a fat-soluble vitamin. And you need it in the right chemical form. You don't want to get fake artificial vitamin D that is an artificial chemical form, you know what I'm saying? And it causes problems, all right? So I don't believe in taking vitamin pills. If someone's vitamin D deficient, I say take some olive oil. Olive oil has naturally occurring vitamin D. It has just as much vitamin A, which they work together, in the right fats. Olive oil, consume more butter, you know, eat some fish eggs, eat some shellfish, eat some liver, eat some egg yolks, okay? All of those things, but definitely olive oil, okay? And there was a point in this world where everybody was consuming olive oil. Olive oil and liver, best sources of vitamin D and A, all right? So, yeah, basically, there are definitely parallels. It's crazy to me how studying cannabis medicine has brought me back to nutrition because endocannabinoids are made from fats, arachidonic acid, omega-3 fats from animals also play a role. It brings me back to nutrition because of the corruption. Instead of nutrition, it was about the corruption of the food companies, which I said are the same as the pharmaceutical companies. But now with cannabis, it's like, oh, here we go. The pharmaceutical company's been suppressing this medicine that doesn't kill anybody, okay, that's not addictive, all right, that helps bring your body back into homeostasis. They want to crush it out, make it illegal, suppress research, okay, all so they can make money. A little bit of research that's done on cannabis is at the University of Mississippi, who, you know, has to be on the cannabis they grow. It's very hard for scientists to get permission, and most of the research has been focused on the negative effects of cannabis. When researchers want to research the medicinal properties of cannabis, it gets crushed out, okay? Denied, ignored. But you know what? In Israel, in Italy, in Spain, in Canada, they've done lots of research. So again, that's another reason why it's important to look around the world. I don't just look at America for anything. I look around the world. What is the world doing? Okay? What is the world doing? Let's look at worldwide research. How is the world doing? Who is the sickest? Who is the healthiest? What are they eating? What are their food systems like? The corruption is not just in the U.S. But to know that, you know, another thing with it being being made illegal in New Orleans, I read in one of the books that I was reading was that I think it was this book, The Emperor Wears No Clothes. Okay, I think it was this book that I read that. But I never heard this. New Orleans is like, I'm from New York. I live in Chicago. New Orleans is my heart. Okay, very special place that I resonate with. I did not know that there was a lot of South Africans in New Orleans. I mean, South African businesses in New Orleans. I don't know if it was the 1800s or the early 1900s. Never heard this before. But apparently they pressured New Orleans to make cannabis illegal. Okay, because South Africa has a similar history to the United States with how cannabis became outlawed. And it was always a huge thing. They call it daga, a huge, important herb to South Africans. So I want to study more of that too. So as I continue to learn, I will share more, of course. But I just had to make this video about this because I'm like, the things that I'm learning is like shocking and appalling. Not surprising because I know that with food it's the same thing. with how they've convinced people. Like, even the stuff I put on my skin, I don't put regular lotion on my skin. I don't use regular soap on my skin. I do not use Dove or none of that shit with all those chemicals. Okay? I use shit made of palm oil, coconut oil, olive oil, you know, ghee, cocoa butter, shea butter, but not any of those chemical lotions. Oh, your husband's from New Orleans, you go 3 times a year? That's dope. Yeah, that's dope. New Orleans is one of my favorite places on earth, okay? For sure. And a lot of the outlawing of cannabis came from New Orleans, associated with New Orleans jazz, the whorehouses, because apparently jazz and the whorehouses were like the same thing, and they were just like, it was associated with all this negativity. That wildness is one of the things I love about New Orleans, let me just say. But that's not what this page is about. That's the stuff I talk about on my other page. But, yeah, it's all been propaganda. So, I mean, Mexicans and blacks are owed a lot, okay, when it comes to, you know, reparations in this cannabis world, you know what I'm saying, and being put in the forefront, okay, because there's so much to say, too much for me to say in this video, and my phone's about to die. But definitely check out the books that I've recommended, and I'll keep sharing more in other videos, learning more about the medicinal properties. Definitely go back, listen to other videos I've done. If you would like a consultation with me, definitely hit me up. And then, what was the other thing I was going to say? There was something else I was about to say and I forgot. But, and I definitely feel I have a book coming when it comes to cannabis and nutrition. I've always had so many books I need to write, but I'm like, this grad program is forcing me to write more, so I'm like, I need to write. Because the things that I'm seeing with nutrition and cannabis and the parallels, I don't see anybody talking about. It's a disconnect. And a lot of people I see who are suffering from chronic conditions, it's because they're not eating enough cholesterol and animal fats. You know what I'm saying? And they work hand in hand with the phytocannabinoids because they're necessary for our endocannabinoids and for our vitamin D, which is very similar to cannabinoids, okay? In terms of what it does in the body. All right, so that's a whole nother thing. And check out my other videos in that. If you learned something from this, please like it, please share it. If you are on YouTube, you don't follow me on Instagram, be sure to follow me on Instagram at TheBodyScientist81. I don't even know what I'm saying. Look, I'm on Instagram right now. If you're on here and you don't follow me on YouTube, follow me there, TheBodyScientist81. If you're on YouTube, you don't follow me on IG, follow me there, okay? Follow me in both places. And I think every time I end the video, there's something I want to say that I forgot to say, but I think I'm going to end this here. Have you used cannabis medicine for anything? You know, are you from a country where you know of a legacy of that? Have you ever looked into the history of that? You know, there's so much documented history that it's crazy. And I feel like this is the time when it's getting to the point where it's not going to be too much longer that the federal government is going to be able to deny it. Okay? Or conventional medical doctors, a lot of them who are clueless about the endocannabinoid system in cannabis medicine. I mean, there are doctors and pharmacists who are aware of it, and nurses, but they're a small minority. But that's about to change, trust me. And I'm definitely going to be a part of that educational process. And so I hope you all have a good day. I'm going to go hit the gym up. And I will talk to you later. Bye.